Fun with technology, huh?
Fun with tech. Where's our customer success person?
If anybody knows the CS team at Demio, give them a holler.
That's all right. Maybe it's user error. One never knows. At any rate, we are here. Welcome, folks, to the webinar, 4 Steps to Increasing Upsell and Cross-Sell this quarter. Corey, always good to see you.
You too.
Yeah. So here's what we're going to achieve today. First, we're going to try to achieve our deck. That'll be fun when we get that thing happening. But in the meantime, you have our entertaining faces and a lot of expertise on the screen. So that'll fill in the blanks. But thanks for joining. Let's talk about what we're hoping to accomplish today. First off, we want to put revenue retention opportunities for success teams into context. What do we mean by that, Corey?
Well, we want to understand, how does the team, after the initial deal gets done, drive revenue for the organization? Because at the end of the day, selling to your existing customers is way easier than going out and creating a new customer from scratch or pulling them away from a competitor.
6 times easier, according to Gartner.
Wow.
You know the folks at Gartner, those are some smart people. So
that's a lot easier.
That's a lot easier. It's a lot less weight to lift. So that's the first piece. Everybody on this call already understands that, right? So we're talking about revenue opportunities, retention opportunities, right? Second piece here, we want to share with you the 4 critical challenges that we've identified in the work that we've done with hundreds of companies, both on the sales side as well as on the success side. But the 4 things we've identified on the success side and account management side that are really specific to challenges that are critical to impact. And then finally, of course, we've got a fast framework, as we always do. Our fast frameworks are super fast. This one actually is faster than normal. Usually it takes 1 hour to get through an entire framework, but this one you're going to pick up really quickly. So we've got that piece. And then also we have a handout for you, as we always do at the end of a webinar, so that you can take that back, share it with your team, use it yourself, depending upon the role that you're in. That's our goal for you. So let's make sure you're in the right place. You're in the right place if you have one of those cards on your website that is a good, better, best card. That means you're in the right place. Other way you know you're in the right place is if you have feature gates. If part of your goal is land and expand, where you're trying to go from an initial traction with a customer and then growing that customer to use more features in your product, you're in the right place. Final thing is, if for some reason you've got pay gates, or you've got an expansion model that accrues based upon the size of the organization, growth within the organization, and you'd like to cross-sell into other departments, you are in the right place. If you're not meeting any of those criteria, then you get 45, 50 minutes of your time back today, and you probably put it to good use. Corey, you want to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do before we dive into the challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're Closed Loop. And Closed Loop is a strategy training and enablement firm focused on helping companies sell more stuff. We often work with companies that are scaling super fast, or they just landed in this world and they looked around and they're like, wow, we've got some goals to hit, but I don't know exactly how we're going to get there, given the team, the process, the strategy, the systems, and the skills that we have around today. So we work with organizations to accelerate revenue. And what we found was that there's a lot of focus on accelerating new business, building new pipeline, closing new deals for the first time. And organizations, when they're thinking about accelerating revenue, often neglect what happens after that customer signs their first contract. So one of the things that we focus on in our practice is not only helping companies close new deals, but also let's see how we can get the most out of our existing customers while making them incredibly successful. So we're going to talk about that a lot today. In typical case, one example of an organization that we worked with. Oh, there's the deck. Wow, look at that. All right, technology is working for us 10 minutes into the session. One example of types of customers that we work with is we had this org that was doing really well at new business sales, and then they hand the accounts over to the customer success team, and the customer success team, like they often do, manage these accounts in a relationship management fashion. So, hey, Hillman, we're close, we're friends, I'll help you, I'll support you, I'll answer your questions. And then come renewal, I'll ask you for a renewal. Whereas what we found was there were some real low-hanging opportunities, real low-hanging fruit. And this is common across, like Hillman said, organizations that have those 3 cards, like good, better, best, bronze, silver, gold, whatever it is. So how do we take people from the bronze plan and upgrade them to the silver and gold plan? How do we take one team and expand that footprint into multiple teams across the organization? So the company I'm thinking about, what we're able to do is, with a simple framework that you're going to learn today, enable their customer success team to ask really good pain-based discovery questions in order to move folks from those smaller plans up to the larger plans, and to expand the number of users across the organization significantly across the board. And you do all of this without having to become extreme subject matter experts in your customer's business, without having to hire engineers, sales engineers, customer success engineers to be technical experts to go in and land and expand, without having to layer on additional managers who can come in and act as super closers, which is never a good idea, though some organizations choose to do so. Very simple framework. So I think that's the core of what we do at CloseLoop, is we work with frameworks. We make things incredibly simple so people can roll them out. And with the handout that you've got today, you've got something that you're going to be able to go back to your desk and do as soon as we leave this session.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So one of the things that we hear from customer success executives often is a statement that sounds something like this, right? That we've got customer success managers who are great at developing relationships. They're great at nurturing. They act as customer advocates. We've got account managers who are great at staying on top of account health, and they're not salespeople. And when I say this, executives don't tell us this in a disparaging way. They say, look, we have a sales team and we have a success team, and we're not expecting our success team to be revenue generators. Yet, on the flip side of the balance sheet, you've got the equation, which is tied to retention as well as tied to net revenue coming from churn and net revenue coming from growth of the actual account. What are some of the equations that we talk about, Corey, with respect to the actual growth of a business, if you're going from startup, scale up, all the way up through, growth and maturity, relative to how much revenue is actually being held in the customer success team?
Well, as you get larger, the number becomes greater and greater, and it surpasses 70 or 80% fairly quickly, regardless of how many new business salespeople you have out there. So it's a material amount of revenue.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There are 4 issues that we've uncovered when we work with these organizations that seem to be pervasive, and you can let us know if this works for you. One thing I also did not mention is that Mitch, who's driving right now, thank you, Mitch, is available to answer any questions that come in the chat. Don't feel as though you have to wait till the end, that we will park some time because there were questions submitted by folks who actually signed up for the webinar. If you have questions as we go along, park them in the chat. Mitch will take them and throw them out in our direction, and we'll answer them as we step through these. But these are in no particular order. They just happen to be 4. So one piece that's challenging customer success teams is that customers are not adopting sticky product features. What do we mean by sticky product features, Corey?
Features that are going to keep them around, that it makes it hard to shift from that product to another. So if they use your sticky product features, then it makes it incredibly hard to move to the competitor, because data might be left behind, other information, or just the implementation cost is going to be a huge burden, both financial and from a change management perspective on the organization.
How often would you say we actually are talking to an organization that has defined what those sticky product features are?
Rarely.
Pretty seldom. So
Yeah.
if you're someone who's sitting on the webinar right now and you're thinking to yourself, sticky product features. Okay, we know the things that we talk about. We know the things that our sales team actually sells. How do I identify what are the features that actually help us to retain existing customers? Or again, going back to this feature gate concept, what are the features that I should be looking to uncover opportunities for? What is the internal process that an organization should go through to be able to determine these sorts of things?
I think one of the best ways is you look at your existing customer base and you identify, if people engage heavily with feature X, then they don't leave. Or organizations that leave, that churn, they don't engage with feature X. So identifying what those are and what the patterns look like between customers that stick around for a long time and those that quickly churn, that's one of the best ways to do it.
And we tend to be technology agnostic as it comes to recommendations and tech stacks, but there's tons of tech out there that does this work for you and presents you really clear dashboards and understanding utilization rates and feature utilization all the way up through your roadmap. So that can be very helpful.
Yeah, and if you're not using that, you're crazy, even if you're really early on.
You're what?
Crazy.
Crazy, man.
What are you doing with my hands?
Tell me how you really feel about that. All right. If you're not using it, you're crazy. Number 2, upsell opportunities are not being proactively created, right? What do we mean by proactively created? Because, hey, you know, I'm working in success. Of course, I get upsell opportunities. Companies grow. They ask me for things. We send them things. We do webinars like this to help them explore opportunities to be able to grow with us. What do I mean by proactively created by a success or an account management team?
It's very similar to what we talked about a second ago. It's looking at the attributes of the customers who have bought more in the past and going out and finding more like that. So people that are hiring, people that are expanding offices, people that are pushing the boundaries of the existing plan that they're on. So for example, if they're on a bronze plan and they're really just using everything, well, what walls might they be running into because they're on a bronze plan that a silver plan could help alleviate some of the challenges that they're seeing?
How much should, you know, this is a question that just comes to mind, and we haven't talked about this, but how much, as you're looking at the product roadmap and you're also aligning to these pricing cards or your pricing gates or your feature gates, whatever they are, how much of that should really directly be informed by utilization and your view of the lifetime value of your customer, whether that's through growth in size obviously equating to number of people, amount of revenue, or growth in market? Like how closely aligned should that be, and where does that conversation take place?
Well, it should be heavily aligned, because if you think about the goal of a business, if we believe Peter Drucker when he said that the purpose of a business is to serve a customer profitably,
right?
I think we do. Especially a lot of you probably have venture-backed businesses. The whole point of venture capital is to provide outsized returns to the S&P 500. That means make more money. So the whole goal here is how do we maximize firm value? And so it's a high-level strategic decision that should be up in the C-suite in order to figure out, well, how do we take the customer, get more out of them, both today with what we have, which is some of the tactical conversation that we're having today, as well as how do we build towards a position where we can increase footprint within an organization or upgrade them into higher levels of plans.
Yeah, I think sometimes the default, and you know, we've worked with some organizations who have a freemium model, and then that migration is towards something that's more enterprise oriented, and that's a tough migration. But you know, with some training, it's easy to coach people into how to make that happen. But I think that sometimes organizations that are in the scale up stage will be trying to accrue customers and aggregate customers, with the feature gate being that this is really where we think you derive the most value for your business, but we want to give you a little taste like bait on the hook, right? Yeah. And I think that there's a point as a company grows in maturity at which there's a tipping point around the effectiveness of that. And one of the things that we talk about, and obviously we focus on the revenue side of success, right? We focus on the revenue side of the organization with respect to sales. I think one of the things that is that can be highly developed to help cross that chasm is to develop sales and success people who actually know how to do discovery and uncover pain to be able to make these things happen effectively from a value perspective, as opposed to get in where you can and then just hope that you're demonstrating enough value on the back end, right? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I've heard CSMs that we've worked with early on say things like, well, the renewal's coming up, so I'm just kind of I'm going to lay low and see what happens.
Right.
And that's dangerous.
Almost like no news is good news, right?
Yeah, right.
Like,
no news
I've actually heard that a couple of times. No complaints, so everything must be okay.
No news is never good news, because no news either means that they're using the heck out of the product and they're not going to buy any more from you.
Right.
Or that they're not using it and they're going to cancel. So news is good.
News is good. News is not fake. News is good. All right, let's go to the next slide, please, Mitch. So cross-sell opportunities are not being proactively created. Now, this is a little bit different than upsell, right? So cross-sell opportunities, first, let's define what we mean by that, right? Based upon the size of an organization and what they're trying to do, it's, you know, ties to the land and expand model. And then again, what do we mean by proactive creation there? Isn't it just that, like, you do really good and people say, hey, I'm going to refer you to other people? Isn't that how it happens through the transit? Magic.
Right. So when we say upsell, we're referring to buying more of what they already bought or upgrading the plan of what they already bought. So if let's say they bought, I've got a Coke Zero bottle here, right? So it's either selling them more Coke Zeros or selling them a 2-liter Coke Zero. That's upsell. Just pulled that. Yeah. Good thing I had a Coke Zero last night, right?
Yeah, right. Sponsored by.
Should I do what the cool people do and rip the label off so nobody knows what I'm drinking?
There you go. Exactly.
Okay, so that's what upsell is. Cross-sell would be, what else do I have? So let's say that I'm at
You
Home
have any
Depot.
snacks?
I don't have any snacks right here. Actually, I do have some snacks, but let's say we're at Home Depot, because sometimes when I go to Home Depot, I buy a Coke Zero. Just walk around Home Depot.
Of course you do.
Right? So I'm going to cross-sell people.
It's called impulse.
It's called impulse. From Coke Zeros into painting tape. So you're selling them another product or service that your organization offers. Oftentimes, if your company's acquired other companies, then you're cross-selling into the product or service of that acquired company. Or sometimes you'll just build something that's in an adjacent space that has nothing to do with what your core product does. So you're cross-selling into that other product. That poses a lot of risks though, Hellman, because if I've been selling this one thing and I know this one thing, and all of a sudden my company buys company B, do I want to sell that thing?
Why would I? I'm sticking with what I know, unless you've heavily incentivized me.
Right. Exactly.
As in, sell it or you lose your job, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So then proactively, like you said, we're not just sitting around waiting for these things. I think upsell opportunities are going to come even easier than cross-sell opportunities because it's the familiar. I've got a 2-liter, or I've got a 20-ounce Coke Zero. I'm going to get a 2-liter Coke Zero. I'm going to drop this here in a second. You already know I like Coke Zero, but if I'm doing painter's tape, you have no idea that I like painter's tape. Geez, I'm going out of control right now. But the whole point is that getting into the unfamiliar space of the other products and services that your organization offers is more uncomfortable for folks. And so it's going to reduce the probability that just general run-of-the-mill people on your team are out there trying to proactively create these opportunities.
I just want to know if your statement, I like Coke Zero, is a Forrest Gump moment or if it's a Rain Man moment. I'm still trying to figure that out in my head. Definitely Coke Zero. All right, next slide. Customers are not renewing. Duh, right? This seems like a duh. But oftentimes this gets blamed on the product. Oftentimes this gets blamed on customer support, right? Why is this a success issue? And how early, here's the trick question, right? How early in the engagement is this a success issue? The concept of renewal. It's like 2 weeks before renewal, right? That's when you start looking at this.
Yeah, I got these renewals coming. I'm going to reach out to them and have a conversation.
Doesn't matter health score. Doesn't matter if I had a conversation before. Doesn't matter if they've blown off every executive briefing that I've tried to set up, right?
Right.
So obviously I'm being facetious, but early and often, right, is the key with respect to renewal. So how do you go into, this is the transition that we're actually not going to talk about, but we talk about a lot when we're training success teams. Handoff from sales to success. The first order of business in success, even beyond orbiting, even beyond onboarding, is to do what with this customer so that you're teeing it up for renewal?
You're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Because now he's asking me a trick question. First thing you've got to do beyond onboarding. Oh man.
Uncover their pain. What's the reason they bought the thing for? Right? Yeah. So, and you do this all day long. That's why you're still stuck on Coke Zero. So the idea is you've got to uncover the pain, right? Out of the gate, the moment you start working with the customer, beyond the onboarding, the conversation in the onboarding is not just a presentation of stepping through features and benefits and how something works and menus and setup screens that they're never going to revisit, right? The idea is, Corey Bray, glad to have you working with Closed Loop. What are the things that you're trying to achieve? And then everything that you do drives back to that achievement. And you're ensuring that you're proving that piece out and uncovering what's the next level of the value ladder that's going to be important for Corey Bray Enterprises. Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. And you build on what the sales team uncovered.
Yeah.
If there's not a clear handoff from sales to success that says, here's the specific pain that we're solving for this customer, then you're putting your success team at a huge disadvantage. And that's not a good thing. So absolutely. Build upon the pain that sales already uncovered, continuously uncover more, and do it throughout the entire sales process.
And what this means is you can't onboard everybody the same.
No.
Inherent in that statement is that you cannot make the assumption that every customer or client that you get has exactly the same problem and signed on with your organization for exactly the same reasons and exactly the same outcome. And so you're going to run them through the same process. You have to treat everyone like a special snowflake because they are. And come renewal time, it's a little too late to be finding out what the goals were that you were trying to drive towards. So ensure that you're meeting those up front and revisit them in every conversation. It's like a comedy thread. When you go hear a good comedian, they tell a joke at the beginning that is revisited 13 minutes later, that is revisited 23 minutes later, that at the end is tied with a nice little bow. Those are your EBRs, right? Those are the meetings that you're having with executives. Those are the meetings that you're having with stakeholders to keep coming back to the value that you're offering. Because often, I mean, this even happens to us, right? We'll buy software. I bought it in the moment because I had a critical issue that I needed to resolve. Once I've purchased it, here's an interesting thing that happens, right? You get this relief after you've purchased something because now you're on to the next fire that's happening in your organization. I may not even remember what my goals were, but then when it comes time for renewal, what did we just have a conversation in Slack, Corey? 4 different things you send out to the team. Are we using this? Is it important? When we bought them, they were critical. These are significant pieces of software that we're now saying goodbye to because we heard not word one from any of those vendors the entire time we were subscribers, right? So that's just a little personal experience, but I think it happens a lot out there in the marketplace.
Yep.
Next slide. All right, let's talk about what this looks like. We're going to dive into the framework in just a second, but we're going to tee up what it sounds like. I'm going to be the customer. Corey's going to be the customer success person. And we're just going to demonstrate what this sounds like from the standpoint of discovery in this role. And then we're going to pick this apart and talk about this FAST framework and share some questions with you.
Yeah, so if I'm a CS person and Hillman's a marketing manager is one of my customers, one of the questions I might ask him is, I say, Hillman, why do marketing managers on our individual plan tell us that they're struggling to share data insights and reporting with the rest of the team? This isn't happening with your company, is it?
Okay, so looking at this in context, what are we trying to achieve with this? Beyond the framework itself, what is the goal? We're starting a conversation based upon what?
Well, I'm trying to uncover pain.
Why? Why not just say, hey, we got all these features that we could show you. We got all these benefits. We've got this roadmap that's going to do the other. Why not do that?
If you show a customer a feature and a benefit, then they need to figure out why that matters to them. And so you're putting the work on them. If you ask them a good pain-based discovery question, then all of a sudden they can just opt into it and either say, I do have that pain or I don't. Way less thinking, higher probability that you'll get the truth and you'll get it fast.
Yeah, that's good. Next slide, please, Mitch. All right, next piece here. The framework is called S.C.A.N. You see the stethoscope there? The reason is because when we're working with success folks or when we're working with salespeople, we always say that your mentality needs to be like that of a doctor. You need to go into these conversations scanning as though you would with an MRI, an EKG, any of the tools that doctors use, right? So picture yourself with a lab coat and a stethoscope, or picture your team with lab coats and stethoscopes, and we're going to execute this framework. Let's talk about what the framework is. You just saw it in motion. The acronym stands for S, which is social proof. When we mention social proof, what do we mean here, Corey?
Well, we're going to show how we've worked with other people like them in the past. If our customers feel that we've worked with relevant folks like them in the past, they're more likely to open up to us, be honest with us, trust us, and feel like we're leading them down a path that's in their best interest.
Yeah, that's it. So social proof is the S. The C is actually an acronym within an acronym, which stands for cause. The idea here is that you have to understand that there is some cause that they're going to have to trigger to decide to either move up the scale towards up the scale up your pay gate or up towards your feature gate. And the idea here is that you need to cause an emotional reaction. In sales, they say that buying is an emotional process that we justify intellectually. Well, the buy off here is to take another step in engagement with you. There is no difference whatsoever. So cause just stands for concerned, anxious, upset, struggling, or exhausted. These are just examples of words that you'd want to use in your language to help trigger the person that you're talking to think about this emotionally. Because if I'm just talking speeds and feeds, if I'm just talking from my analytical mindset, then that's going to get processed as every other intellectualization does. When you start asking, hey, you know, Corey, I'm working with other managers who are struggling. I'm working with other folks who are exhausted by this other thing. You know, some of the CEOs I'm talking to are really anxious this quarter about XYZ. It triggers that emotional part of our mindset, which does something really special. It creates a deeper level of commitment and a higher level of urgency. If we're just dealing with pleasure, which is the gain or reward frame, we've all got something on our list that we want to buy, that we want to do. I got a ton of things that I'm thinking, ooh, you know, this year, I'm probably going to get to these, right? They were left over from last year, though, right? When my knee was hurting last week, I immediately went to the doctor because we are programmed to eliminate pain and eliminate it quickly. So we're constantly looking for problems that we can solve by framing these questions using social proof and making sure that it is an emotional-based question. So the C stands for cause. uncover the emotion. Next slide, please, Mitch. Corey, when we say assign the pain, what does that mean?
We're putting the pain that we're most likely to uncover with this person inside the question. So when you saw earlier, I talked the assignment of the pain is that he's struggling to share data and insights with the team. Well, that's a pain point that I know that other marketing managers have. So I look at the persona, I look at the job to be done, and I predict what types of challenges these people are going to have. And given that information and knowing what we sell and what specific pain points we solve for people, I can come in with some pretty good hypotheses around what type of pain my customer has and continue to uncover it and just get them to opt in. Do they? Do they not? We're not trying to convince them that they have it. We're just looking for the truth.
Next, please. Finally, the N stands for neutralize the response. What do we mean by that? Look, nobody wants to sound salesy. I have trouble with what that means because we work with training professional salespeople, so there is no salesy sounding. Again, it's just diagnosis and uncovering whether or not a problem, prospect or a customer has a problem that you can solve. That said, I get it. You don't want to come off as though you're pitching people and saying, hey, this is something you're experiencing, right? Don't you want to see this? Can't I show you a demo? Don't you want to get your whole team together so I can show you what's next? I get it. That's not comfortable, nor is it really effective. So we always say neutralize the response. By neutralizing the response, what you're doing is you're sharing information, which most studies have shown that both prospects and customers are highly engaged when you're sharing contextual information that is relevant to them. Because here's the deal. You're talking to more people like them with their problem or with the thing that they're trying to solve than they are any day. So you actually have a great deal of expertise to share. So being able to say, hey, Corey, I'm working with other CEOs, right? That's the social proof, who are exhausted by, that's the emotional response, trying to hit their quarterly number inside of COVID. That's assigning a pain, right? I know that this is happening with folks that I'm working with. Now I'm just going to say, this isn't something happening to Corey Bray Enterprises, is it? Why am I doing that? Because it allows him to come off the hook. It doesn't sound like, so isn't this something you're struggling with? Isn't this something you want to talk about? Can't I have a feeding frenzy on you right now and sell you something by the end of my quarter so I can meet my quota for upsell or cross-sell, right? Instead, you're backing away from it, but you're sharing information. Does it make some sense to talk to you about this experience that I'm having? So it's non-presumptive, it's not salesy, it's a disqualifying question as well, because another problem in sales and success roles is that we're constantly faced with rejection or the potential for rejection, and who wants to be rejected all day long? So don't frame it, don't set yourself up for it. Assume it's not true. You're doing your diligence, you're going out, seeing does someone have a problem that you can solve. If they don't, no problem, that's great. Wish you well, glad this is working for you. Anything that I didn't ask you about that would be important for us to discuss today? If not, great, we're moving on. That's the neutralization of the response. It looked like you were about to say something.
No, just don't try to convince me I have a problem. Get me to opt in.
That's it. And then once I've opted in, the other issue here is that once I have opted in, now you can hold me accountable to the resolution of that problem or to exploring a resolution. When you've suggested it and kind of force-fed it to me, now it's on you. You got to do a dog and pony show and dance and demo and make sure I'm happy and try to get me to cross the line into doing what you're asking me to do because you invited the conversation as opposed to just...
otherwise you get somebody who says something like, hey, Hillman, so don't you think this would be helpful for you and your team?
Right.
Okay, so everybody's going to say something like, well, yeah, probably, kind of, maybe, not a priority. It's going to be harder to get a hard no because then they know that you're just going to go in objection handling mode and fight back against them because that's what other people that they work with have done in the past. So this is an approach where it's like, oh, wow, they're giving me an option to opt into this or not, and then we can move on.
Exactly. Speaking of moving on, next slide, please. Corey, you want to talk through how the framework was laid out?
Yeah, exactly. So we can use this to start conversations. I'm talking about the very first few minutes where we're looking for pain and just simply say we're working with social proof. So that's that job title or group of job titles, the persona that we talked about, who are concerned, anxious, upset, struggling, or exhausted with whatever the pain point is. Now, we have an example here where it's one. You could put 3 in there. We're working with CEOs who are concerned about X, they're anxious about Y, and they're exhausted about Z. That's not happening with you, is it? And so since it's a framework, it's just Mad Libs. Plug and play the language that works for you within your customer base, and you can consistently be scanning for pain.
Let's revisit what we started this off with respect to the SCAN question so folks can see how this plays out. One more time. I'll be your customer again. I like being your customer.
Yeah, hey, customer. So a lot of other marketing, tough customer. A lot of other marketing managers that we're working with who are on our individual plan tell us that they're struggling to share data insights and reporting with the rest of the team. It's not happening with your company, is it?
Okay, break this down for me. Where's the social proof?
Social proof is marketing managers, because those are the other people like you that we're working with.
Exactly. What is the C, the emotion, the cause?
Emotion, the cause is struggling. We insert in emotion because people have pain.
What is the assignment of the pain that you think I might have relative to other folks that you've worked with?
To share data insights and reporting with the rest of the team, because this is the pain that we often see with people like Hillman, marketing managers.
Dissect how we know this again. So the key here is that I'm on an individual plan, right? The supposition here is that there's an individual plan, and then there's a group plan, and then maybe there's an enterprise plan, which some folks on the call might have, right?
Yep.
So what is it that you know as a success person? What is it that you know that is key to this statement? You didn't just snap this out of nowhere.
No. I know that a lot of people that have upgraded from our individual plans to our team plans in the past have done so in order to better share data insights across their team.
And you know this is a sticky feature.
Sticky feature. Once they use it, it makes it harder to switch to the competition.
Boom. So you're leveraging that to my benefit, right? Because this is probably not something that I'm aware of. And it's not that I would come back to you and go, I'm really struggling to share data insights with the rest of my team, right? Because you are not my first priority all day long. And then finally, how are you ensuring, because you've got to maintain rapport with me over the course of at least a year of our relationship, so you don't want to seem like the person who I've got to avoid every time you appear in my inbox, right? How are you instead making this easy for me to opt into or say no to without impacting our relationship?
Well, that question at the end, this isn't happening at your company, is it? Just getting him to say yes or no.
That's it. Bottom line. All right, let's do one more. We'll role play this. I'll be the buyer. Hey, Corey. So, I was poking around the website and really like what we're doing with you guys so far. But can you tell me a little bit about this feature, this API integration capability?
Yeah, so now in my mind, I'm tempted to tell him all about the products and the features and the benefits, but I'm not going to do that. Instead,
but wait, why not? You got a live one. I'm opting into the feature. Why wouldn't you do that?
So Hillman, our API is actually best in class. It leverages machine learning and artificial intelligence in order to deliver instant insights, and it operates at the intersection of design and science.
Oh my God, sign me up today. But you know what? Email me that. Send me some information and I'll get that done ASAP.
Yeah, exactly. So now he's sitting there saying, why the heck does that matter to me? Whereas instead I could have done what's on the screen. I said, well, hey, Hillman, now he's a sales leader. He was marketing, now he's sales. Switch jobs very quickly. I said, hey, Hillman, usually when a sales leader brings up APIs, it's because they're concerned they can't see all their data in one place and are struggling to make real-time decisions. That's not the case here, is it?
Now, what's the difference in this pivot?
Well, now he's asking me about a specific product feature, and instead of saying, here's what the feature does, and here's why we built it, and here's why it's so great, I say, wait a second, he's asking about a product feature. I wonder if he has pain that product feature can solve, and as a result, I scan for pain.
Bottom line here, again, it's back to diagnosis. So now when I opt into this question, Corey now can hold me accountable to having said, yes, this is an issue. And, when we're working with teams, success teams, we actually help to vet out whether this is a high priority issue, what the cost of the impact is to the team, whether or not this is their problem to have to solve, or if they should bring stakeholders into it. So we're giving you the S.C.A.N framework, which you can take, you can road test, you can run out there and use it individually or roll it out with your team. And it will have a significant impact on the ability to have these types of questions. There's some other pieces, obviously, that you might be doing really well already, which is once you've uncovered that there's a problem or an opportunity, let's say, that exists for one of your customers, that you can then leverage that into being able to quantify the cost of that opportunity so that you've got a value exponent that you can articulate in a conversation with them to be able to move them towards that goal. But this is it. Really simple. I mean, we're big on simple frameworks that are easy to roll out, easy to remember. So here's another question for you, Corey. You can advance the slide, Mitch. If you're a leader in an organization who's thinking, okay, this is easy. I don't have to boil the ocean. I don't have to do a whole lot of retraining. This isn't something that like a success person would view as being hyper salesy. How do I integrate this? And then how do I create some transparency to hold folks accountable?
Well, the easiest way is make sure there's a field in your CRM that says pain, and that it continuously builds on itself. And so we want to understand when we sign that customer, what pain are we solving? And then as we're going along, if you've just got a very simple implementation, we've seen people just have it in there and say solved and in progress or something like that, where we're identifying what pain do they have and how well are we doing at solving that. Obviously, there's more complex customer success management solutions that you can get, and then continuously uncovering more. And like we've been talking about the whole time, if your company has several different plans and the customer's on the lower tier, then identify what pain would they have to have today to care about that bigger tier, and then start asking questions around that to see if there's something there. And then we've got a clear upsell opportunity.
Yeah, that's it. Let's advance the slide, Mitch, and then if you can make that handout available to folks. There's a handout that you can download here. You'll probably get a notification on your screen that tells you that you can download this. The handout actually spells out exactly what we have talked about here today, the S.C.A.N methodology and how you can use it with your team. You can take it and circulate it internally. And you really have all you need to be able to put this framework to work. If you want to work with a pro who does this all the time, we actually have training that's built specifically for customer success and account management around these types of things. We don't train the basics around how to manage conversations and de-escalation, things like that. What we talk about is how to, without turning your success and account management team into salespeople, how to develop relationships that create lifetime value that's significant for both you and for your customer, that help people to cross over different gates that you might have as an organization planned out, and help to adopt feature roadmap and new product adoption as well. We do have a bunch of questions here that Mitch has sent over into the chat. I'm going to ask some of those. If you have questions right now, it's a great time to bring those up. Corey, I've got, does S.C.A.N apply to other revenue departments besides customer success?
Yes. Anybody that's talking to customers should be scanning for pain. We've even seen customer support reps do a phenomenal job of solving the problem and asking a S.C.A.N question at the end of that resolution to see if there might be an opportunity for an upsell or cross-sell.
Absolutely. What's the difference between a good and bad quarterly business review? I'm assuming they mean a business review with an executive sponsor in a customer organization. So a bad one is not having it at all.
Yeah, right.
That's the very worst, where somebody who actually purchased it has kicked you down to an admin or an operator who's using it tactically, and you just don't ever get them back into the conversation. So I'm going to change this a little bit and say, how do you go about getting executives who may have been part of the sales conversation involved in this quarterly conversation that's essential for renewal, upsell, cross-sell, the whole enchilada?
Well, I think the S.C.A.N framework might be able to help. What pain do those executives have that either we're solving well, that they want to keep an eye on to make sure that continues, or that we might not have gotten to solve yet? And again, that might be on a higher plan that we can offer. Get them involved based on the pain that they care about, because that's what's going to get them emotionally committed to the process.
Yeah, that's good. When should we ask a customer for a referral? Haha, favorite question.
Never. Always.
Always? What do you mean always? How can you do that?
With your mouth or with your fingers?
Yeah, but I mean, we haven't proven anything yet. Don't you have to wait at least 6 months until we've proven out the thing that they bought us for? What?
You proved something because they signed a contract with you.
Yeah, they're never happier than the day they've signed a contract with you.
Yeah.
Early and often and always. But, referral asks aren't, hey, Corey, do you know anybody like you who would be interested in having a conversation with me about solving X problem? What's the problem with asking for a referral like that?
Yeah, nobody talks like that, so they don't hear those things.
Yeah, to be more specific about that.
Yeah, so often when we just say, hey, let me know if you know anybody, happy to have a conversation. The people that ask for referrals that typically have success is they say, hey, Hillman, if you know any other customer success VPs who are concerned that they're not hitting their net retention numbers, or they're a little anxious that the junior folks moving up into more senior CS roles aren't equipped to have pain-based conversations with customers, then let me know.
Wait a minute. That sounded suspiciously like a S.C.A.N question.
It was a S.C.A.N question.
Is the answer to all of these questions, all roads lead to S.C.A.N?
Often.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about why we use frameworks, because folks may not understand where we came to this goal of using frameworks. You can boil the ocean if you want to, going into an organization and deciding, hey, we've got to investigate the entire CRM, audit the entire organization, train the entire team, pull the executive management team out for 2 weeks, and have these high level discussions and align. You can do all that. You can absolutely do all that, and you know what? It does move the needle. It'll take you 18, 24 months to do it, and you'll shake up the entire team and disrupt your entire workflow. What most companies need is a point solution to a problem that could be integrated into the workflow of an expert individual, which is the person that you've got sitting in the seat. You hired them for a reason. They're obviously competent. You've trained them on something. They probably have some subject matter expertise. They probably already know how to do half of the things that are necessary in developing rapport and having conversations with human beings. Now you give somebody this thing that crosses what we call the knowing doing gap, which is that both success people, salespeople, account managers, even, all of us as human beings do a very small percentage of the things that we know. There's a saying that, like, if we all did everything we knew, we'd all be skinny, rich, and happy, right? That's the joke. So the idea is, how do we cross that chasm? The easy way to do it is in rolling out a framework. Now, if you gave this to your team, if you took this handout and you gave it to your team, the entire team now knows a S.C.A.N methodology. So you don't have to run around and say, hey, you got a conversation with Corey. So how are you going to leverage some of our customer stories in a way that he's going to identify with them? And then how are you going to uncover whether or not he's got a problem that we can solve and figure out a way to get emotion? And then, don't be too pushy on him and maintain that rapport. You just go, what is the S.C.A.N question you're going to ask? Just like that. And it's implied, it's inherent in the conversation. Now, let's say you're a manager, Corey, and you're listening to my calls, right? What are you looking for in my conversations every time I have a conversation with one of our customers?
Is Hillman asking S.C.A.N questions, uncovering pain to drive more velocity in upsell and cross-sell conversations? Or is he just sitting there being a relationship manager and hoping that deals are going to renew or people are going to buy more?
Exactly right. So that's the whole goal, is this alignment between the tactical thing that a success person needs to be doing on a daily basis, the manager's ability to have transparency and accountability and oversight into that function, and then strategically ensuring that you're aligning with the goals of the board and the goals of the executive management team. That's what one simple framework can do. Corey, before we wrap here, we have a bunch of other questions. They're kind of in the same vein. A lot of, when should we ask for referrals? You have a framework for asking for referrals. I love that people are asking these questions. Compensation question around CSMs. How should we go about compensating CSMs?
Well, have upsell and cross-sell be a nice component of that for sure. I think that retention's absolutely critical for sure. But if we're doing the right activity, if we're asking S.C.A.N questions, if we're uncovering pain, that's going to drive both retention as well as upsell cross-sell. And sometimes they make the mistake of, well, rising tide floats all boats. So if you're in a hot space, hot company, and people are going to renew or buy more no matter what is the realistic goal? What's the stretch goal? And how can we make folks really earn a lot of money if they do the right things and get some great results out of it?
Yeah, that's great. Last question here. We may have differing opinions on this. When is the right time to build out a CS team? I'm assuming this is coming from somebody who's either seed or early stage startup.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, not too early, because I think the founders should be CS until they figure it out.
Yeah, we agree on that. Why? And what does figure it out mean?
Well, why? Because they need to be as close to the customer as possible so they can iterate on product.
Absolutely. You got to hear it verbatim. You can't play third party, the telephone game with your feedback on the product itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's assume you've done that and it's no longer scalable, right? You've got enough customers, fortunately, and you've got sales team that's selling predictably. When's a good time?
Once you have 2 or 3 salespeople.
And that ratio being with what kind of mindset? Is it the onboarding mindset, or is it the amount of customers you need to retain mindset, or is there something?
Well, the first person is to do everything mindset, and then you can get specialists in the future. Because what we often see is that once you grow, you can have an onboarding specialist who's a more junior person and a more senior CSM that handles everything else. But out of the gate, that person has to do everything. So more senior person to start, and then you can backfill them wherever the opportunities are. Oftentimes having an onboarding specialist if you're high velocity, or just getting more senior CSMs if you're not.
Love it. Very good. The rest of the questions are pretty much the same. Look, we appreciate you joining. We'd relish an opportunity to have a conversation with you if you are a customer success executive, or if you're not and you've got some questions that you'd like to dig deeper on specific to your organization, shoot us a note at webinar@closeloop.com. Either me or Corey are happy to have a conversation with you. And specifically, if you're attempting to dramatically improve your post-sale revenue growth or customer retention, we'd be happy to talk about how we've done that in spades with a number of our clients as well. Corey, any parting words?
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you coming today.
Thanks so much. Good to see you.